All right, so problem 3, you're asked to factor out x from 5x squared minus x. So factor out x from 5x squared minus x. All right, so step 1, factoring out a term means you're dividing by that term. And if you're factoring from 5x squared minus x, it means you're dividing 5x squared minus x by x. So if you're asked to factor out x from 5x squared minus x, you're being asked first to divide out x from 5x squared minus x, or you're going to be dividing 5x squared minus x by x. All right, so that's step 1. We're going to divide 5x squared minus x by x. Now, because I'm dividing the whole binomial 5x squared minus x, I'm going to put it in parentheses. Now, this might look familiar. We did do this during Tuesday's class. So I'm going to first rewrite the division problem as a fraction. So I'm going to write 5x squared minus x, the dividend as the numerator and the divisor as the denominator. Then I'm going to apply the distributive property, which says if you're dividing a sum of two things or a difference of two things by one term, you can split it up. So I can write it as 5x squared divided by x minus x divided by x. And then I'm going to write out x squared as repeated multiplication, so I can write out 5 times x divided by x minus x divided by x. And then I can divide out common factors. So x and x divides to 1, x and x divides to 1. Divides out, you can divide out an x to get 1 over 1. I'm going to simplify to get 5 times 1 times x divided by 1, 1 over 1. So I'm going to get 5x minus 1. That's what I get if I divide 5x squared minus x by x. Notice something. X divided by x is not 0. That's a common mistake if there ever was one. X divided by x is not 0, it's 1. They do cancel out, but they cancel out to 1. That's why I don't like the term cancel out that much, because students associate canceling out with things starting to 0, when cancel out is used in a lot of other contexts. So I'm going to say divide out instead of cancel out here. Divide out to 1. Okay, 5x minus 1. Okay. Now, step 2, I'm going to rewrite 5x squared minus x as a product of x and 5x minus 1. So I'm actually going to perform the factoring out. So I'm going to write factoring out x from 5x squared minus x. I'm going to write 5x squared minus x equals x, the term that I'm factoring out, times what's left when I factor it out, 5x minus 1. So 5x squared minus x equals x times 5x minus 1. Now you can check, kind of do a little mental math. You can distribute this x and see that what you get back is 5x squared minus x, right? All right. Okay, so I'm going to state my result. I'm going to state my result. I'm going to write 5x squared minus x equals x times the quantity 5x minus 1. And this is what I did was I factored out an x. What I did was I factored out an x. Why did I factor out an x and not an x squared or something? Because that's what the problem told me to do. So there might come a time where you make a choice of what term to factor out. But right now we're just going to follow the directive of the problem. So the problem told me to factor out an x. This is what the result will look like. I have to write both parts, by the way. Okay, I divide out and then I state the results. All right, we'll try this one more time. Problem 4, factor out 3y from 12y to the 4th minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide, step 1, I'm going to divide 12y to the 4th minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared by 3y, by what I'm factoring out. Okay, so I'm going to write 12y to the 4th minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared divided by 3y. Now notice I put parentheses around this trinomial because I'm factoring out 3y from the whole trinomial. not just from the first or the second or the third term, from all three terms. So if you want to consider many things as one object, that's when you put parentheses around it in math, right? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite the division problem as a fraction. The dividend, 12y to the fourth minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared, becomes the numerator. The divisor, 3y, becomes the denominator. I'm going to apply the distributive property for division. I'm going to write it as 12y to the fourth divided by 3y, 3y cubed divided by 3y, and 6y squared divided by 3y. And I'm going to write power expressions as repeated multiplication and divide out common factors. So y to the fourth I'll write as y times y times y times y, y cubed I'll write as y times y times y, and y squared I'll write as y times y. So let me divide out common factors. 12 divided by 3, I can factor out a 4, I can factor out a 3, to get 4 divided by 1. Y over 1, I can factor out a 1. 3 over 3, I can factor out a 3 or divide out a 3 to get a 1 over 1. Y over 1, I can factor out a y to get 1 over 1. 6 over 3, I can factor out a 3 to get 2 over 1. And y over y, I can factor out a y to get 1 over 1. So if you simplify, you get 4 times 1 times y times y times y, 1 times 1, and so on. I'll just copy the rest of them. So you get, simplify further, you get 4y cubed. Obviously, dividing something by 1 times 1 is just 1. Minus y squared plus 2y. If you can do this in your head, go ahead and do it, right? If you can do this, so it's, some students have practiced factoring out in middle schools, some haven't, as with a lot of topics in Algebra 1 for this year. So if you can do this in your head, if you can just look at this, the first line, and know what the result is going to be, right? All the powers of y would go down by 1. 12 would get divided by 3. You can do that in your head. And then as we get move on later on, I'll do this a little bit faster. But these are the steps. If you're seeing this for the first time and you want to know how we jumped from the first line to the last, these are the steps. Okay, so step 2, I'm going to rewrite 12y to the fourth minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared as a product of 3y and my result here, my quotient. So I'm going to write 12y to the fourth minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared equals 3y times the quantity 4y cubed minus y squared plus 2y. And I'm going to state my result here. So, right, 12y to the fourth minus 3y cubed plus 6y squared equals 3y times the quotient I got. And then if you distribute, you'll see that you get your result back. And what I did, the jump from the left side to the right side, I factored out a 3y. That's what this operation called. If I give you the left side and I ask you to factor out the 3y, I want you to give me the right side as a result, okay? That's what to factor out means. Vocabulary is half the battle in math classes. If you don't know what it means to factor out, there's not even a chance that you're going to figure out the rest of the problem, right? Even if you might actually know how to do it. So vocabulary is an important thing in math, because it's a language, it's a different language. We want to understand what we're being asked to do. So to factor out means to kind of rewrite. I used to call it reverse distribution with some students. So you rewrite it as kind of a distribution problem. All right, problem 5, last one. Factor out 4x squared from 4x cubed plus 8x squared. I'm going to pause if you want to see, or you can pause here if you want to see if you can get the right answer. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 4x cubed plus 8x squared by 4x squared. So I'm going to write 4x cubed. Again, I'm putting it in parentheses because I'm dividing the whole binomial. I'm going to write 4x cubed plus 8x squared divided by 4x squared. I'm going to rewrite division as a fraction. So write the dividend, 4x cubed plus 8x squared, as numerator, the divisor as the denominator. I'm going to apply the distributive property of division and split the fraction up. I'm going to write power expressions as repeated multiplication. So x cubed is going to be x times x times x. X squared is going to be x times x, and so on. And then I'm going to divide common factors. X divided by x is 1 over 1. 4 divided by 4, I can factor out a 4. It's 1 over 1. X divided by x is 1 over 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2 over 1, right? You factor out a 4. X divided by x is 1 over 1. X divided by x is 1 over 1. I'm going to simplify. What am I left with? 1 times x divided by 1, 2 times 1 divided by 1, right? So I'm going to get x plus 2. That's going to be my result, x plus 2. And I'm going to, step 2, rewrite 4x cubed plus 8x squared as a product of divisor and quotient. So 4x cubed plus 8x squared equals 4x squared times my result, x plus 2. And then this is my result, 4x cubed plus 8x squared equals 4x squared times x plus 2. And what I did was I factored out 4x squared. I factored out 4x squared. So factor out means reverse distribution. You're kind of pulling out or dividing out a term from each term of something you're factoring out. The reason why we don't call it divide out is because you're actually dividing out many terms. You're dividing many terms by one term, okay? So we wanted to have a special word for that. The same way distribute means multiply, but it means to multiply one term by many terms. So factor out means to divide many terms by one term. All right. That's it. So I posted the homework online. I'm going to make the due date for the homework by the end of the school date, okay? I've had a few students ask me to do that, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So it won't be by 10 a.m., but 3 p.m. And then these are the due dates, and then just submit your homework through Schoology. All right. Have a wonderful weekend.